And we're back. Oh, we're back. I would like to make a note that the intro is missing an instrument that's present in the full song and the instrumental. That's all I have to say about it. So, records of service. Today we are starting off our adventure of game overs, bad endings, and unrequited love with the snake of the hour, Sun and Sun. My A button is still it's still broken, so I'm sorry in advance if we have to go back a couple of times because it's a button that's very sensitive at the moment. Alright. Let's go. Sanan, Chapter 1. Of course, we want low romance and high corruption. That is your recipe. Let's go. It's also very hot outside, so the air may be on the entire stream. Skip button. Go. I really need to figure out how does one get the artwork for this game. How do I get the sprites? I need the sprites. I have zero clue about ripping games. Anyway, we could rid Furies of Bloodlust. We'd be able to remove the symptoms of bloodlust completely.
もちろんうまくいけばの話にはなりますけどね。我々羅刹の最大の欠点は定期的に襲ってくる吸血衝動のせいで理性がなくなってしまうこと。それがなくなれば今よりもずっと新選組の役に立てるかもしれません。
And now the skip button again. Uh-oh. Right. As we should know by now, make him endure it is the game over option, apparently. Whereas the give him blood is the one to survive. What should I do? I was panicked, shifting my eyes back and forth as sweat poured down my forehead. Sanan-san forced a smile with gritted teeth to comfort me.
そんな顔をしなくても大丈夫。今まで何度この衝動に耐えてきたと思っているんですか。だから今回も。
My heart was ready to burst from my chest. Sanan-san clawed frantically at his skin, writhing and grunting in agony as I hugged him tightly from behind.
雪村君。
I know it's not much, but this is all I can do for you right now. Everything's okay. Everything will be okay. I patted him softly on the back as his entire body flexed in extreme pain. As he grimaced uncomfortably in my arms, I kept my arms around his ribcage, careful not to aggravate him. I may have been slightly out of view from him, but I hoped that my warmth could serve him somehow. Skip button! I don't like that only Nagakura and Harada got the special CG with their new outfits. It's Skippy. As Sanan-san's pressure on me mounted, I said, "Nothing." I found myself at a loss for words, which I feared Sanan-san would interpret as a sign of guilt. Even so, watching his eyes thin from sadness was a sight I could no longer stomach. So I began frantically saying whatever came to mind. Oh no. That's the worst thing you could do. May I assist you in your rounds? You know, that way I could be a witness of sorts and prove your innocence.
仮に私が犯人だったとしたら、君が同行している時だけは猫をかぶるなんてことも考えられますよ。
Well, Sanan-san offered me a wry smile, pushing me gently with a harmless outstretched palm.
さあ、豚舎に戻ってください。あなたに何かあったら、留守を任された意味がありませんから。
Without waiting to hear my response, Sanan-san spun on his heel and ambled down the dimly lit road. Skip. Wait, so you really think it was him? I refuse to give in. I'm going to find Sanan-san again, and I'll prove to everyone how innocent he is.
おい、待てよ、千鶴!
Heisuke shouted at the top of his lungs as I bolted away from him back into the city, ignoring his pleas. As I traveled down the main road, my eyes searched every street corner and izakaya for a trace of Sanan-san. Sanan-san, where are you? As I poked my head into a yawn. As I poked my head into a narrow, cramped alley, I noticed something that made me freeze. An ominous pair of piercing crimson eyes flashed in the thick darkness. I realized too late to whom they could have belonged, and as I attempted to backtrack into the main road... Everything went black. A dull ache rang like a bell in my chest, and my entire body felt white hot, No matter how much I tried, my eyes refused to open again. I think that was the quickest death we've had. What the fuck? Alright. Oh. Alright, quick death. Back to the records of service, where we pick the snake again. And continue on with chapter 2, which is low romance and high corruption. That is your recipe. Hooray for mineral water, aka spicy water! There's no explanation for why I call it spicy water except that it's kind of spicy. But not in the sense of spicy. Oh, right. The abandonment of, we can't have experiments. No, this is where we just start thinking of doing the experiments. That's right. I gazed at him fondly and decided to say, don't give up. Please, don't give up. Setbacks happen, and although we weren't able to find anything from my father's research notes, there has to be something in there that we could use. Maybe that's the key you've been looking for. Don't be too hard on yourself. Your research hasn't been fruitless. We've only just begun, really. I was afraid that he'd think I was being coy. But I couldn't bear to watch his stoic eyes drip with melancholia. Melancholia? Yeah, that's the first time I've ever heard that word. So I rambled off encouragement. Soon Sana-san's lip curled into a thin, faint smile.
そうですね。まだ何かできることはあるはずです。
Sana-san muttered softly before shaking his head in trepidation.
しかし現在は新選組として羅刹の研究も止められている状況です。
Oh no, wait, yes, wait, no, this actually is banned, wait. My brain doesn't remember the order of things. I guess it happens at the same time.
とりあえず今は土方君の誤解を解く道を探ることにしましょう。
Okay. Sana-san pursed his lips, taking his teacup and gulping it in one sip. After he placed it down, I grabbed the cup and stood to begin my exit. Well, I suppose I'll be leaving now. Please have a pleasant evening, Sana. Just as I had turned my head over my shoulders towards his bedroom door, we make him endure it. A grotesque agony consumed Sana-san, measured in thick beads of sweat, bloodshot eyes, and a pair of violently shaking hands. Are you okay, Sana-san? As I attempted to comfort him, he stretched his hand out, stopping me from getting any closer.
いえ、すぐに部屋から出て行きなさい。
Yeah, that's not happening. But you're suffering, Sana-san.
私なら大丈夫です。だから今すぐ。
Sana-san! Sana-san's body contorted from uncontrollable pain, and he began crawling at his own chest like a wolf into dirt. I watched in horror before wrapping my arms around him, as if I could absorb some of his pain into myself. My only solution was to restrain his lashing body, desperately hoping that his pain would soon subside. Moments of pause would lull me into a false comfort until the seizing would pick up in rhythm again. I took them as they came, however, continuing to hold him until his gnashed teeth loosened a bit. No. Sana's missing. Is it gonna be in the alleyway? Yep, it is the alleyway. Hi! Upon seeing that, I chose to step back. I stepped behind Ichikata-san and Heisuke meekly, and they inched closer to Sana-san with swords raised. They cautiously eyed him like a feral dog. It was a saddening performance, one that breathed life into the idea of the Shinsenguma's deterioration. Ichikata and Sana-san traded hateful glares. An electrifying tension filled the air, making it nearly impossible for me to draw breath. In the blink of an eye, I saw someone dart forward, though it hadn't been whom I was expecting.
Chizuru!
しまった。とどめを。
The Ronin, who moments earlier was laying lifelessly, jumped up and slashed my body into ribbons. Everything was turning black. Even in my final moments, I was overcome with guilt. I'm sorry, Sanan-san. It shouldn't be like this. That was also a very quick game over. Whoa, okay. Alright, back to our snake boy. We're on to chapter 3, which is low romance, high corruption as your recipe. Oh, right, this one. Oh, this chapter. I remember this chapter. It's in my head. Skippy, Skippy. These two. I bit my lip in hesitation, telling Sun, I don't know. What did I want to do? No one else had confronted me with the question, so I was too timid to answer the question off the cuff. Well, that I am unsure of. I suppose I'd only be able to decide if I spoke with him, and even then... Regardless if he's crossed or not, nothing is certain until I hear the words come from his mouth.
まあ、それもそうね。
Sun pursed her lips in contemplation, fiddling with her hands before addressing Kimigiku.
お聞く。いいわね。
No, we could just skip. Oh, the skip. Two Ueno! And of course, make him endure it. Sana-san, please stop. Rage consumed Sana-san, prompting him to pounce on the nearby remains of a dismembered soldier. Jeez! I did my best to restrain him, but there was little else I could do when the two of us were totally surrounded by what he had craved most. Against my better judgment, I kept myself from attempting other options, clinging to the hope that his sanity would remain intact. I was beginning to think my hesitation would cause Sana-san but no alternative seemed worth the risk. Off we go. It's recovered. And this whole thing. Son, have you joined my father? Son, are you and my father working together? Is this where you...
言葉は正確にお願いします、雪村君。
God fucking damn A button! Son, are you and my father working together? Is this where you've been since you left?
言葉は正確にお願いします、雪村君。役に立ちたいと主張する我々の声に耳を傾けなかったのはどこの誰ですか。私から見ればむしろ先に裏切ったのは彼ら。私たち羅刹の居場所を奪ったのは新選組の方です。
Son delivered his acerbic criticism coldly, leaving me with no rebuttal. From my peripheral, I saw Father prance in delight towards his new colleague, and from his tone of voice, I could tell he had been reveling in this. Bleh.
それでは三男君、ここで改めて聞かせてもらおう。以前、鳥羽伏見でも告げたが、君は羅刹大使ともども私たちの側につくのかね。
ええ、他に道はありませんから。
Why? Why, son? How could you? My knees buckled from shock, trying my best not to give into an overwhelming feeling of defeat. I held my head low, and son responded with a mere shake of his head.
都合の悪いことから目を背けるようでは新選組に未来などありません。そもそも近藤さんが亡くなった今、新選組はもう新選組ではない。単なる土方君の部隊。私にとってそれ以上の存在ではありませんか。
No. My worst fears were unraveling before my eyes. Sana-san had given into the darkness, and now Father had gained the missing piece of his puzzle. The bellow in Sana-san's voice was fueled by unstoppable conviction, and I dropped to my knees in disbelief. I was in the den of the beast, a cave built upon lies.
儲けてる暇はないよ、千鶴。一緒に来てもらおうか。俺と行動おじさんと一緒に兄弟仲良く暮らそうじゃないか。
Before I could react, Kaoru stretched his arm at me, wrapping his slimy fingers around my wrist. I instinctively darted my line of sight towards Sanan-san, carrying a faint hope that he'd rescue me. But it was useless, and his blank, glassy eyes remained unmoved as Kaoru yanked me closer to his body. No! Let go of me!
その手を離しなさい。ご無事ですか、千鶴さん。
Sen! Kimikiku! Fortune smiled upon me as Sen and Kimikiku leapt into the fray, intervening between myself and Kaoru with swords drawn. Out of frustration, Kaoru lashed out with a swing of his blade, which was deftly intercepted by Sen's parry.
じゃあ魔物か。
羅刹兵が足止めすると思ったが、鬼の一族にかなうことではないか。今日からわざわざお越しとは一体何のようだね、ヤセの姫。
いくつもの鬼の里を襲撃して宝物や民の命を奪っておいて白々しい。その挙句羅刹を量産しようとは。鬼の一族の誇りを捨てたか、雪村行動。
その誇りとやらが何をしてくれた。そんなものを五章大事に抱えているから、鬼の一族は 滅びの道を歩むのだよ。止められるものなら止めてみるがいい。
I winced in horror as two spots began bulging from Father's forehead, splitting the flesh to reveal horns.
それは純血の鬼の証。なぜそれがお前に。
これが落ち水の力なのだよ。
Father suddenly flung a fistful of what looked like to be scalpels towards Kimigiku, which produced a clang against her sword with her quick deflection.
落ち水は王流の私にさえ鬼の棟梁と同じ力を与えてくれるのだ。
嘘、そんな。
おいおい、よそ見をしている暇なんてあるのかい。
Sen and Kaoru began clashing blades, and sparks flew as their steel hissed with consistency. I shuddered, but it was unfair for me to stand and watch. I unsheathed my kodachi resolutely. My palms were clamming as they wrapped around my kodachi's hilt, exacerbated by Kaoru's taunts.
何してる三男。さっさと千鶴を連れて行け。
人使いの荒いことですね。まあいいでしょう。無駄な抵抗はおすすめしませんよ。うっかりやりすぎてしまうかもしれません。
Don't patronize me! It shattered everything I had known about Sana-san, to see him vilify the Shinsengumi. He was, as much as Kondo or Hijikata-san, woven into the fabric of their myth, an embodiment of their values. As I kept the tip of my blade pointed at him, I knew that my chances of victory were slim to none. My courage felt in short supply, and even for Sen or Kimigiku, Sana-san was a more than worthy adversary. But I couldn't bear to roll over and let him take me. I braced myself for impact, holding in my breath as a blinding flash of steel momentarily came into view. Rather than being aimed at myself, however, the sword's arc whizzed past me to strike Sana-san, who narrowly avoided its path. Can we skip this? Yes, we can. How much of this is going to be skipped and where is... Never mind, I got to this part. I marveled at Hisuke's heroics, but the echo of his rousing declaration attracted the attention of Furies, who began to swarm around us gleefully. Hisuke against Sana-san. Sen against Kaoru. Kimigiku against Father. Everyone else was locked in a fierce duel, and I had been left to fend for myself. Yeah! With wild aplomb, I waved my kodachi at the mess of flurries, hoping to chomp at me viciously.
やめろ、お前じゃ無理だ。
But the furies bunched like moths to an open flame, appearing to be provoked by each of my frenzied swings, which weren't aimed at anyone in particular. It was a desperate play. I flinched as my kodachi connected with the outstretched forearm of an attacking fury as blood splurred onto my face. As Heisuke warned, however, their vigor was unmatched, and I soon felt overwhelmed. They clawed at me insistently, and before I knew it, one of the Furies snatched my kodachi out of my hand. The Fury's piercing scarlet gaze was pointed at me, along with the tip of my own kodachi. As the cold steel was driven into my heart, I felt an unimaginable searing pain, causing me to cry out in desperate agony without any chance to defend.
雪村君。
おい、羅刹兵、やめろ、やめるんだ。
やれやれ、仕方ない。こうなっては ヤセの姫に代わりを務めてもらうか。
As I collapsed to the floor, the fading sound of father's voice echoed in my ears. Oh, that was an ending. Oops. Now onto the bad ending for our snake boy. Alright. Low romance and high corruption is your recipe. Where's the skip button? There we go, there's the skip button. The skip button is wonderful! It helps so much! As we try to reach our bad ending. Alright. Give me the first option. We're getting there. Ah, this scene, right. It's like when you have a chip in a porcelain doll. That's what it reminds me of. A regretful frown covered Sun-Sun's face, and I said, "Nothing is for certain. Nothing is for certain yet." I felt compelled to wrap my hands around Sun-Sun's face and draw him in closer so that his eyes were inches from my own. Forget what my father said. We have no idea whether or not he was lying when he told you that Furies cannot become humans again. Are there other means you could experiment with?
それはそうですが。
Then let's fight it until the very end. Until we verify the truth. You can't give up. Ugh. Silence hovered between us, save for the sound of steam hissing from my teacup. Asana-san let my words sink. He bit his lips and hastily rubbed his hand around my arm. I gasped, and he spoke under his breath.
わかりませんね。どうしてあなたはこんなにも汚れてしまった私に優しい言葉をくれるんですか?
I think this means we can hit the skip button. Yep. Until... Alright. The T. I forgot about that. Never mind, and we gotta make him endure it. As always. Veins bulged from Sana-san's forehead, which was drenched in a coat of sweat, as he viciously clawed at his body. He ground his teeth in desperation. Sana-san...
気にしないでください。きっとこれは罰なのです。羅刹でありながら、あなたに心を奪われてしまった私への。
A despondent frown curled on Sana-san's lips, and he quickly averted his line of sight as his focus returned on the agonizing pain he was currently suffering. Sana-san!
大丈夫か。罰ですから。私はこれに耐えなくては。
My only choice of action was to embrace Sana-san's body as he convulsed in front of me. Time to hit the skip button again. There we go. Oh, it's July. Hi, Crowder. We don't like you in this house. We don't like you for various reasons. Alright, so where is the bad ending starting? It's gonna start somewhere here, and I don't know where. Come on. It was all a trick by Sanan, which I originally saw coming a mile away when we did this route.
君たちをすべて始末した上で、ゆっくりと元の身に戻る方法を探せばいいだけの話だ。
Father cackled to our dismay, and then put the glass vial to his lips, swallowing the serum in one gulp. Father unleashed a deafening roar, causing me to flinch as he charged towards Sanan-san. He attempted a jab, which was effortlessly parried by Sanan-san, but the latter suddenly stopped in his tracks. He looked up, wearing a panicked expression as he slowly tilted his head downwards. I realized at the same moment he did, and cupped my hands over my mouth in horror. His flesh began to wither to dust, like the burnt end of an incense.
どうやら寿命のようだね、三男君。これなら落ち水を飲むまでもなかったか。
My heart tightened in my chest. I attempted to sprint towards Sanan-san, hoping to hold him in my arms for his final moments, but as my body lunged forward frantically, I felt someone pull me back. Let go of me! It was Kaoru, rubbing salt in my emotional wounds by grabbing a hold of my arm with a sadistic grin. Of course it's Kaoru!
そんなんはもう終わりだよ。お前はこれから家族としてずっと俺と一緒に暮らすんだ。心配する必要はないよ。お前の世話は俺がしてやるから。もっとも毎日血を絞り取られる生き地獄のような日々だろうけどね。
Kaoru struck my neck with his palm, then gripped the back of it forcefully to cut off the circulation of blood. As he restricted my breath, I felt my vision blurring. Then, darkness. Game over. And now all that's left for our snake boy is the unrequited love. Let's see how this goes, because it was skipping all the way to the end. Records of service. Chapter 4. So we need low romance and low corruption. That is your recipe. Bop, 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 bop. Much skipping. We've been through this before. In fact, we've been through this answer before. We've been through both answers before, actually. Alright, so, yeah, things are... Nothing's for certain. And then we give him blood, which we've been through already. Now let's see. Where? I guess it's gonna be the same place, isn't it? We'll see. Where is it? Alright, he's gonna drink that.
君たちをすべて始末した上でゆっくりと元の身に戻る方法を探せばいいだけの話だ。
Father cackled to our dismay, and then put the glass vial to his lips, swallowing the serum in one gulp. There he goes. Father's eyes shine malevolently as he pointed his fervent gaze over towards Sen. Oh no, that's different.
素晴らしいこの溢れる力。これなら相手がヤセの姫だろうと西の鬼の棟梁だろうと負けるはずがない。
なら試してみなさい。
Damn, son!
なんて力なの。
姫様、お下がりください。
The force of Father shoved blew Sen back several feet, and with his other hand he knocked Kimigiku with a swift punch to her chest. Like Sen mentioned, Father irradiated a terrifying energy, enhanced by his consumption of the serum. His muscles bulged from inside his kimono, and with a cool smack he blasted Sen and Kimigiku across the room. He puffed his chest sharply.
やはり私の研究は何一つ間違ってはいなかった。
He formed his lips into a satisfied smile before locking his hands together, charging up his latent energy. Sana-san, however, was unafraid of Father's display. He merely stared back at Father, and there appeared to be a hint of sympathy twinkling in his eyes.
寿命を全うして死ねる機会すら失うと最後まで哀れな人だ。せめて私が楽にしてあげましょう。それが私にできる最後の慈悲です。
小作がいい。この道この私に勝てるはずもない。
As the two sprinted forward to clash into one another, sparks flew from the clang of their blades meeting. Father, at least visibly, was the stronger of the two. However, Father deflected each of the jabs aimed towards his abdomen by Father's scalpel.
力では勝っていてもあなたは剣の達人ではない。日々武士として強くなるために傷だらけになって稽古に明け暮れ何万回と素振りを繰り返しそうして培った武士の技をたかな薬を飲んだ程度で超えられるはずがないでしょう。
He mustered his muttered words. His muttered words fell death on Father's ears, who continued to swing with vicious aplomb. Finally, Sanan-san deflected an incoming slash, exposing Father's abdomen, and Sanan-san drove his blade into his opponent's heart.
バカだ。
Father lowered his guard, and Sanan-san peeked at Heisuke from his peripheral, watching his comrade easily subdue Kaoru and the rest of the rogue furies.
これで終わりです。コーラオさん。
そうだな。その通り。全くもって口惜しい話だ。
Sorry, Koda, I can't quite hear you over the music.
だが三男君、終わりなのは私だけではない。君だ。
What? No! Before I could realize what was happening, I rushed over to Sanan-san, whose face was awestruck. As I placed my hand softly on his shoulder, I felt it crumble, and soon his flesh began dissolving, like dust in the palm of my hand.
残念ですが、どうやら限界のようです。
No! You can't die yet! There's still so much that we need to do! So much I have to tell you! My world was falling apart in front of me. I felt numb to my surroundings. Sanan-san, turning to sand, melted into the ground. It was a harsh reality, and I was overcome with regret. I couldn't contain myself from crying, and soon a deluge of tears began streaming down my hot cheeks.
まさか私のためにこうして泣いてくれる人がいるとはね。それだけでここまで生き延びてきた意味があるというものです。
As the hushed words left Sanan-san's mouth, pieces of his body would begin to chip from the bottom up. His feet were little more than piles of ash, but his face, pale and serene, was perfectly intact. A tiny smile curled in his lips before he muttered,
雪村君、私のわがままですが、一つお願いがあります。
What is it?
どうか私のことを忘れてください。君にはまだ未来がある。この先も生きていかなければなりません。だからどうか私のことは忘れ、別の幸せを見つけてください。
Is that what you want? Sanan-san? If I were to leave your memory behind, and there came a day where I found the heart of another, if that person wasn't you, would you really be okay with that?
いいんです。
Oh, that hurts! Sanan-san, please. This is our final moment together. I just want you to tell me how you feel about us. I couldn't help but quiver from sobbing. Sanan-san's breaths were pained and shallow, but he still managed to eke out a kind smile.
では、私の本当の願いを、私のことは忘れなさい。どうか早く、私のことは。
Before he could finish his sentence, the affliction moved to his face, and he disintegrated entirely. I stared blankly at the pile of ashes, and another agonizing wave of tears slid down my face. buckled and fell to my knees, clutching fistfuls of ashes in my hands and holding them against me. They spilled, like all things do, from my delicate hands. He was gone, carried along with the bitter wind. Okay, that one actually hurt me. Gah, whose sentence? Takayuki Suzuki. No. Nobuo Tobita. There we go. That was it. Ah! How? Fucking hell. Well, there was our resident snake boy. Oh. You know what? That one deserved a CG. This Unrecorded Love deserves a CG. So far, the only CG we've gotten is Yamazaki. There has to be at least one other person, right? I have a feeling I know who it might be. Which is the boy we're doing next, which is Hijikata. I think he's gonna get one as well. But only 2 of them? That seems very out there. Huh. Hey, Automate, Idea Factory, can you translate the other games that are on the Switch, please? I require it. Alright, give me a second. What? Go that way. There we go. Alright. Finn. Alright. No, I gotta find Hijikata. Alright. He has 6 endings, I'm sorry. Records of service, and luckily he's the first one on the list, so. Chapter 1! Low romance and high corruption is your recipe. And the skip button also. You know, that might just come in handy. Alright, come in. Aiba. Hijikata has the longest fucking route. And I guess it makes sense. Because they wanted Hijikata to be the main boy. But anyway, Hijikata, you should rest. Hijikata-san, you're the one who should be resting. You don't look very good. He looked at me, and I felt as if I'd suddenly stepped into a blizzard.
俺が休んだら誰が新選組を支えるんだ。薩長ともう一度戦うために腰の座らねえ幕府のお偉いさん方の尻を蹴っ飛ばさなきゃならん。俺以外にそんな真似ができるやつがこの隊にいるのか。口出しするんじゃ。
I didn't expect a friendly agreement, but neither had I expected that. Without Kondo-san to speak to the Shogun on our behalf, only Hijikata-san could hold the Shinsengumi together.
土方さん、そういう言い方はねえんじゃねえの？こいつは一応あんたのことを心配して。
No, it's alright, Heisuke. I turned back towards Hijikata-san and bowed my head silently. Forgive me. I should not have spoken out of turn.
てめえの体のことくらい分かってるつもり。休むべき時には休むさ。
His condition still worried me, but he was a smart man, and he was aware of his own weaknesses. It wasn't really my place to say whether or not I thought he was fit to work as hard as he did. Maybe, just maybe, he'd be okay. There we are. There's the music I was waiting for. Unfortunately, make him endure it. What was I going to do? Blood would certainly calm him down, but I didn't think Hijikata-san would want that. I was running out of options. I could make him take the medicine I'd made, but Sana-san had said that it was only a temporary solution. The pain was getting worse. I could hear his teeth grind, and the muscles in his neck looked ready to snap. He tore at his hair in agony. Hijikata-san, are you alright? I ran towards him, but he threw out an arm as if to stop me.
いいから放っておけ。もう似たようなことは何度も経験してんだ。時間が経てばなんとかなる。
You all say the same bullshit. But
三男さんや平助よ。俺が羅刹化を命じた連中はこいつを乗り越えたんだろう。だったら俺に我慢できねえはずがねえ。だから放っておけ。
even while his body writhed, his eyes burned with a determination, driven by fear and pain. The more it hurt, the harder he fought. I couldn't bear to see him in pain any longer, and I turned to leave the room. And I left him. I listened to him suffering for what seemed like an eternity. Had I done the right thing, I wondered? I could have forced him to take the medicine, although I was sure I would have been scolded for it. Perhaps as I'd known him better, I could have thought of another way to help him. If Inoue and Yamazaki-san had been there instead of me, what would they have done? Worry and regret washed over me, and I spent the night tossing and turning, unable to sleep. New headquarters! Coffee! Which is not the best place to be, but okay. I decided to... Wait, is this real? Is this for real? Stay behind? Alright, I trust you, guide. I'll stay here. We've been through this. Is that really the... Promise! Even without a word, Amagiri had easily defeated Kondo-san. I had only a Kodachi and the barest minimum of training. I could not possibly win. The tip of my blade shook madly, but I kept it raised. I'm sorry, Hijikata-san, I thought to myself. I might not be able to make it through this. I think the demon will leave Kondo-san alone at least. I'm sorry I won't be able to stay by your side any longer. But I hope you and Kondo-san will keep fighting. Well, that was one way to go. Chapter 2. Right, low romance and high corruption is your recipe. What could I do for him? Tell him to rest. Please, Hijikata-san, you need to rest. You shouldn't push yourself too hard. That was the most I could say to him.
あの天霧ってやつの言葉が本当なら、羅刹の力をむやみやたらに使わなきゃいいだけの話だ。できる限り休むようにはするさ。この大変な時期に倒れちまった。元も子もねえもんな。
I felt the tension in my shoulders relax. At last. So, what will the Shinsegun be doing now? And make him endure it! Hijikata-san, does it hurt? I asked, and he shook his head in response.
この程度、耐え抜いてみせるさ。俺を誰だと思ってやがるんだ。
But I didn't know what to do. I simply stood there helpless as Hijikata-san clutched his hands in his stomach and curled around them in pain. He dropped to his knees, still groaning in pain. Hijikata-san, please hang in there. His hands twitched and scraped at his skin, trying desperately to stem the pain coursing through him. Hijikata-san had never been a man to show emotion or pain to others. That he was reduced to such a state said more about the agony he was in than anything else. Desperate for something, anything to hold on to, his hand wrapped itself around my arm. It was clammy with sweat and shook violently. His grip, however, was as strong as ever, and I felt his fingers dig into my flesh as pain began to run up my arm. I bit my quivering lip, trying to restrain myself. My pain was nothing next to what he felt. I had no right to complain. There was nothing more. Nay! No. There was nothing more I could do, so I simply held him until the shaking began to subside and his breath grew slowly less ragged. He made it through the pain somehow, but his face was even more drawn and haggard than before. It hurt to even look at him. He couldn't possibly intend to simply weather the pain every time, could he? Was that even possible? the sacrifice. What should I say? Well, we're convincing Kondo-san to escape. Kondo-san, please think about what you're doing. You could escape with us. Hijikata-san and Shimada want you to live. Kondo-san smiled down at me. My attempt to convince him to leave laughably ineffective.
俺はもう十分生きたよ。それにもし俺が逃げ出したいなんて言えば都市は羅刹になって自分の命を削って新政府軍と戦うに決まってる。羅刹の力を使えば都市の寿命はどんどん縮んでしまうんだろう。
So Kondo-san had known how high the cost of becoming a Fury really was. He must have heard Hijikata-san and Sana-san discussing it the night Sana-san learned the truth.
あいつの命を糧にしてまで生き延びるのは。
He gave a sad, lonely laugh, and I felt like my heart might break in two. I made no more attempts to convince him. Alright, how far are we going? Oh. Just then, I saw something flash in the corner of my eye. Eyes. No! Hijikata-san will... Before I could complete the thought, my body moved. I charged towards the soldier, aiming his rifle, hoping to shove the barrel down from its target. However, as the sound of his scream registered in my ears, a sharp blast followed it, making my ears ring in pain. I felt all of my strength leaving my body, and I fell face first into the ground.
Yukimura-kun! Yukimura-senpai! Shikkari shite kudasai!
From afar, I could hear what sounded to be the desperate cries of Shimada and Soma. What happened to me? I wanted so badly to raise myself, for my body to stand like everything was okay, but I felt weak. I felt consciousness leave me. Records of service. Hijikata. I will be right back. We're back! Alright, it's chapter 3 time. In which, low romance and high corruption is your recipe. And we'll hit the skip button at some point. Oh, that's what Tsunomiya! I remember what happened there. Oh, he kind of got hurt, didn't he? Like, badly. Ah, it's an Otori! Otori! What could I say to help lessen that pain? One is clearly more pain lessening than the other. The other one, I have no idea why that's an option. I don't think this is the time to be weak. You have responsibilities.
責任
He raised an eyebrow. The men that are still with us, warriors like Inoue or Yamazaki-san, who died for you. And most of all, Kondo-san himself, who left the Shinsengumi to you. I know it's hard, but you need to pull yourself together and get back to work. I wanted to cheer him up, even if it was just a little bit. Perhaps my words were a bit harsh. His burdens were great indeed, but I knew him. You could get through this. He just had to try. But he only sighed.
分かってるさ肩に背負ったもんを今さら放り出せるとは思っちゃいね
Ichikata-san bit his lip furiously, looking away from me. It was only when he spoke that I realized just how deep into despair he'd fallen. Perhaps my words had been a little too harsh. We fell silent again, and only sounds were nearby bugs chirping and fluttering in the night. Ah, there it is. Ah! Make him endure it! I reached into my pocket to pull out the medicine, but
いい余計なことをするんじゃねえ
But he shook his head.
ここまで耐えてきたんだ今さらこんな苦しみに負けてたまるかよ
He was doing his best to resist, but it seemed that the pain was more intense than before. As Hijikata-san shook horrifically, I couldn't help but wince. There was nothing I could do. Suddenly, his knees buckled. Hijikata-san! I wrapped my arms around as much of him as I could and held tightly. He was in too much pain now to even speak. He could only groan. Even breathing seemed to hurt. Nails scrabbled across his chest as he scratched at it, almost as if he could tear it off and let all the pain flow out. I felt tears well up in my eyes. Was this really the only way? Perhaps I made a grave mistake. Perhaps I should have given him blood. Instead, I just held him until the bloodlust lessened. Whee! right, this whole shit. Alright. I had to do something. Oh! Okay, stop Hijikata, apparently. Hijikata, no! Oh. Cosmo's sword flickered as he moved slightly. Hijikata-san no longer had even enough strength to lift his blade to block a parry. I could see in his eyes the realization that his death was almost upon him. No! My mind went blank. There was no time for thought, only action. I leapt across the room faster than I'd ever moved before. His eyes went wide with surprise, but it was too late. For a moment, everything was silent. Then I fell, sliding backwards onto the floor. Cosmo's sword was the Demon Slayer. Not even my demonic healing abilities could repair the gaping wound that was beginning to bleed profusely. He could barely breathe, or even speak, but he still managed to sound as if he was scolding me. I tried to turn my head to meet his eyes, but my body no longer moved. All I could see was the ceiling. I coughed blood. Shinsengumi needs you. Even if Hijikata-san thought that he'd lost his direction, there were still plenty of people who looked up to him. They dreamt of being like him, and they'd follow him into hell without a second thought if he asked. He felt lost, but I knew he had the strength to find his way again, and the courage to push ahead. Even if I couldn't be there for him when he found his way back, there had to be something there for him. Something beyond the hill he'd been climbing for so long. I couldn't let him die before he found it. That was a very long fade out. Now on to game over number 4. Once again, low romance and high corruption is your recipe. And skipping. No, not this scene again. Of course. We, make him endure it. His face warped in pain, and Ichikata-san spoke up. It was like he'd seen right through me. But he shook his head once.
こっさくらい自分で抑えねえと傷が治っても戦場に立てねえだろうが。
As the words came out of his mouth, his knees gave way. Whoops. Hijikata-san! He curled in on himself, moaning in pain. I wrapped my arms around his body and held him tightly. Even breathing caused him to moan in pain. His fiery nature drove him to thirst for blood. Exhausted and injured, his body craved it even more. His pain, therefore, increased with every episode, and I could see it reach into every corner of his body, trapping him in a cruel fate. Hijikata-san! He looked like he could barely breathe. The bloodlust was devouring his body and his soul. How much longer could he survive like this? I could scarcely bear to think about it, but I felt as if his time was nearly up. I nodded. Which one is the answer? Let's see. Is it going to be the same that I think it is? Oh, never mind. That's actually the opposite. All right. I'll never leave his side. I'll be sure to keep an eye on him. I won't ever leave his side. Of course, that was something I planned to do in any event. Saito-san's desire happened to coincide happily with my own.
頼まれるようなことは何一つねえよ。あんまりこいつを調子に乗らせるな。
He gave Saito-san a sideways grin and shook his head. Saito-san said nothing. He just looked at us with a peaceful stare. And on we go. And we're in Sendai. Okay, things are gonna go horrible. It's gonna be... Hey, Enomoto. With your glorious mustache. It's gonna be exactly where I think it's gonna be. Oh no, we're gonna be taken away. Not this music. Oh, how is this gonna play out? This scene hurts in so many ways at the end of it, but it was too late. My hand had scarcely touched the hilt of my sword when the furious blade sunk itself into my chest. I tried to scream, but no sound came out, and I fell to the floor in silence. As the world began to turn dark, I realized in a distant, numb way that I felt no pain. Someone was calling my name from very far away. Was it my father? Or Hesuke? Or sun on sun. Or Hichikata-san. But before I could call his name, the darkness took me, and I fell into a deep, never-ending sleep. On to chapter 5 to do our bad ending and unrecorded love ending. So first, bad ending. Low romance and high corruption is your recipe. Alright, Otori's the wingman. I take it back. Alright, let's go into this. And we rip it up. Iba! They didn't want to make a sprite with his normal hand and a bandage, so they just decided to use the same sprite. Though, it could probably still happen in the background, who knows. And we, of course, make him endure it. Hijikata-san, my blood. I grabbed my sword, ready to draw it out and cut my fingers, but Hijikata-san yanked my hand, which had grasped the sheath, and he looked at me tenderly. Then he slowly shook his head. I could see in his eyes that he would never agree to take my blood. Why are you doing this?
こいつは戒めみたいなものだ。俺が耐えなきゃならねえものなんだよ。だから血はいらねえんだ。
Even as his body rebelled, his mind held strong. How could I try and tear down such determination? Instead, I wrapped my arms around him and held him as tightly as I could. As his body shook and twitched as his body shook and twitched as his fury blood clawed at the inside of his veins and his mind. I could almost see it draining life and sanity from him, more than I'd ever had before. The pain grew so intense that he could no longer speak. Ichikata-san! I squeezed him even tighter. He already suffered under a burden that would kill a lesser man, but he insisted on bringing himself even greater pain. Why did he do these things? I wanted to help more than anything, but all I could do was watch. And that was so frustrating. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. He was suffering horribly. There was nothing I could do or say. Perhaps he was running out of time, just like he'd said. That thought terrified me. Boop, boop, boop. Boop, boop, boop. Wait. It was mid-March, and Ezo was starting to welcome their late spring. As we had long anticipated, the Imperial Army's naval fleet had finally arrived in Edo. Allegedly, their ships were going to dock in Miyako Bay, and the news of their arrival spread quickly. There we go. Serizawa Hijikata! We're getting there, I swear. Oh, this would be when Shimada and Soma are like, hey, take care of her boss. Yep. I'll do my best. I'll do my best. I'm ready to lay down my life, just like anyone in the Shinsengumi.
体を張る必要はありません。君には土方さんの心を守ってほしいんです。
え？
土方さんは強い方ですが、その強さの裏で一人苦しむ方でもあります。そばで支える人間が必要です。俺はそれが雪村君だと思っています。
To stay by Hijikata-san's side and support him was all that I wanted. But can I really do that? Soon we'd be plunged into a violent and bloody battle. How much help could I be to Hijikata-san in the middle of war?
何を言ってるんですか。雪村先輩以外にできるはずがありませんよ。
相馬くんの言う通りです。あの人が誰より心を許しているのは君ですか。
All right. I would protect Hijikata-san's heart. No one else could stay by him in the days to come. It was all on me now. I nodded firmly to Shimada, my mind set. As should be. The kiss. Oh. Right. Hijikata's very pale. Wait, we're here? Hold on. This is where we ended up? Ha. Wait. So... This is... Oh, it skipped a whole lot. Wow, okay. Suddenly, crimson splashed to the earth beneath them. Each man thrust his blade through the chest of the other. Fresh, dark blood spewed from Kazuma's mouth. Even as his lifeblood poured out onto the cold ground, Kazuma smiled savagely. He squinted his eyes slightly, as if resigning to his fate. Then he collapsed, forever silent, to the ground. Hijikata-san! I ran to his side. Hijikata-san tried to force an impression that the severity of his wound hadn't affected him in the least, but quickly, looking up and down at him, told me otherwise. Blood was flowing from his chest. This made his gunshot wound from earlier seem like a harmless scratch in comparison. It was up to me to try and stop the bleeding. There had to be a way I could wash and stitch the area. I needed to send for help. Hijikata-san depended on me. His life depended on me. Just as I stood to fetch some help, the crack of a nearby gunshot whipped through the air. Then... I felt the bullet as it passed through my heart. Suddenly, I couldn't feel my hands nor my feet, and I felt my body slam against the cold ground. Perhaps the Imperial Army had charged all the way to Goryokaku after all. I couldn't be sure, but... Ichikata-san, soon, I will join you in the afterlife. I didn't expect that to miss so much. Wow. Time for the unrequited love! Chapter 5. Low romance and low corruption is your recipe. Skip button! Don't take it back. I tightened my lip into a thin line and stayed quiet. I waited 3 months and finally I was able to be reunited with him. I just couldn't bring myself to accept his rejection of these orders to drive me away.
聞こえねえのか。持って帰れっつったんだ。
He narrowed his eyes, but I didn't move. Finally, with an angry mutter, he tore Tori's letter in half. I'll get him to write another one.
何度来ても同じだ。こんなもの受け取れるはずねえだろ。
Then I will. I'll keep coming back as much as I want. I'll keep bringing them until you do approve of it.
くどいぞ。いい加減にしやがれ。
No, not until you accept these orders. I wanted to cry, but I swallowed my tears and raised my voice to match his own. I'll come back as many times as I have to. I won't stop until you approve it. I squeezed my jaw tightly, doing my best to hold back the tears that threatened to spill out across my hot cheeks. Hijikata-san sighed, defeated.
どうしてそこまでするんだよ。俺なんかにくっついてたっていいことなんざ何一つねえだろうが。
Because I want to help. My answer was ready as soon as he spoke his piece. A lot of people have died for you, for the Shinsengumi. They've left you with a lot of responsibilities. Inoue, Yamazaki, Kondo, Satsu-san, Sana-san, and Heisuke. Every single one of them had cared for Hijikata-san. They wanted the best for the Shinsengumi. Maybe it's arrogant of me, but I want to try and carry on in their place. They were comrades, no, friends of Hijikata-san, and they supported him so much that they gave their lives for him and the Shinsengumi. But here I was, still alive. How could I be proud of what I've done when they've sacrificed everything for Hijikata-san? So for me, there was no happiness, no peace, as long as Hijikata-san was not by my side. I can't fight, and I don't understand politics, I admit. but I can run errands for you and bring you tea and anything else you might need. I really didn't care what he asked me to do. I just wanted to do something. I wanted to be useful for Hijikata-san. So please. So please, let me stay. I want to be here with you. He stayed silent as I spoke, and his face was serious. There was no doubt that he knew just how sincere I was. After a few moments, his gaze fell to the floor. I watched his shoulders shift uncomfortably. No.
もういい。それ以上言うな。
His face twitched into a quick smile, but the stress was still plain on his features. Then suddenly his arms were around me. We're getting there. The answer is we've already seen it. We should have something to answer for quite soon. Eventually. Game. Give it to me. Ah, this. God, how much do I have to say about Hijikata? I'm trying to get my thoughts on him. Serizawa coming to him in a dream is just a bit weird. Ah, right, this is the part where we give our answer, and it's, you know, gonna be one we've already done before. You can't do that. We've been over this. Alright, so what are we skipping this time? Alright. Horse. Bye. Where are we going? Okay, we're still going here. We're skip all. Oh my god. Wait, does this mean the unrecorded love is what I think it is? Just then, a red splatter spread like a spider lily came into view. It is what I think it is.
破れたか。構わぬ。これほどの男と最後、刀を交えることができたのだ。
Kazuma feigned one last eerie smile. Then he crumpled to the floor as if he'd lost the power to support himself. I thought the opposite actually happened. Hijikata-san! Hijikata-san had also come close to collapsing, and I ran over to him as he supported his weight with his sword. I attempted to catch his body, which was quickly becoming dead weight, as he could fall at any moment.
平気だ。急所は外してるからな。これぐらいの傷ならじきに治るさ。
Oh wait, so he did actually. Okay. I tried to take solace in Hijikata-san's optimism, but the color had all but left his face, which under normal circumstances would have spelled death. I couldn't shake the image of what was happening in front of me, and immediately I assumed the worst. Just then. What was the matter? Could I be hallucinating? Just as the thought came to mind. An ash-like powder began to flutter from out of Hijikata-san's sleeves. It was something I had bore witness to before, something I had grown familiar with. I looked into Hijikata-san's eyes, and he silently nodded as if to confirm my fearful suspicions.
ようやく風間に勝ったっつうのに、この結末か。
Hijikata-san, no! Don't say that! The war had finally ended. This was supposed to be the end for both of us, where we could live our lives in peace together.
お前を置き去りにしちまうことになりそうだ。
I was speechless. I struggled to think of anything meaningful to reply with.
達者でやれよ、千鶴。くれぐれも後追いなんてバカなことは考えるんじゃねえぞ。
Hijikata-san extended his hand close to me, softly running his fingers through my hair. Then, before I could utter a final goodbye, his body became ash in front of me, disappearing from sight. Oh, I was wrong about who's gonna get that ending. Hijikata-san! Hijikata-san! My lungs were strained as I screamed his name aloud. The only answer to my desperate cries was the soft whistle of wind blowing cherry blossoms around me. Oh, that's it. Yay. What's wrong? Yamazaki is still dealing with the CG for the unrequited love. Which is weird. Now, the question is, do I feel like doing Okitas right now? I kinda... It feels wrong ending with just 2 tomorrow. I don't know why, it just feels very wrong to end with 2. So I think tomorrow we're gonna start with Okita. And then we're gonna go on to Nagakura and then Kazama. Actually, hold on a second. Yes, actually we are going to do that because Kazuma only has 2 endings. So I'm going to save Okita for tomorrow because Kazuma is going to be very, very fucking short. But also I gotta scroll through chapter 4 by hand for both Okita and Kazuma because I missed a word in each of their roots. So we're going to do that as well. And then, once that's done, that means Sunday, we're going to go back to Kyoto Winds and do this list in the order we started in, with Kazuma. And do all of those endings, which I think is only 2 each, maybe? So we're going to do that. So, I think tonight we might have SSL. That depends on what happens. So if we do have SSL, we are doing Harada's route, which I don't know how I feel about it. We're gonna see what happens. They handle Hijikata's very, very well as a teacher. I'm afraid what they're gonna do with Harada and any of the other teachers, to be fair. So we'll be back at if you want more of these endings, we'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. EST with Edo Blossoms and all the game overs and such. Please drink water. Have a good day or night. Don't die because you didn't drink water. And I'll see you later. Bye-bye.